So here we have our combo box demo. It's a little bit long, but a lot of the stuff is simply strings and image views that we're defining. Which brings up an important point about what's going to happen in our event handler. So we're actually going to focus on that initially. Here is where our event handler is defined. Remember that selecting an item from a combo box constitutes an action. So we have combo box set on action, and here is where we define, using lambda notation, the event handler. But notice that what's going to happen is that when an action event occurs, in other words, when we select an item from the combo box, what we're going to do is execute this code that's going to, right here, use the get value method to determine which item was selected. And what's important about that is that does not return the value of the particular item, but rather the value of its index, because we've actually said items.index of. So in other words, this part here does give us the value from the list, but we're more concerned with whether that particular value is the first item in the list, or the second, or the third. So we query with the index of method to find out which number it is within the list of items that are there. Now, why do you suppose we would be more interested in the index rather than the actual value? Well, it's because we've got a number of different arrays that are going to be defined to go with all of those items, and we want the index so we can look up the appropriate match from all the different arrays that go with it. Because remember, there's three different things that are going on here. There's an image that we need to get, and there is also a text area that we need to fill, and we need the label for the particular flag that's going to show up. And all of those things are going to be found by using the particular index of the item and not the value of the item. So what you see in the combo box in terms of the value of the item is not as important to us right now as where its position is located for that reason. So now that you know that, let's go back and look through the code and see where all the different arrays are defined that we want to know those indices for. So I'm going to scroll up to the top here, and let's first of all identify all the different image views. So this section of code right here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of different image views. One for China, one for Denmark, etc., etc. And what we're doing here is we're defining an array. Notice we don't specify the size, but it's an array of image views. And we're going to call it flag image. And then we're going to, as you can see by the curly bracket that opens here and closes way down here, we're going to define a whole bunch of these. Let's count them. So there's going to be one here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to actually pull in 9 GIFs as image views, and we're going to have an array of 9 image views. And now keep that in mind then, that we've got 9 image views. We're also going to have 9 strings representing the flag descriptions, and notice right here, that's where we've declared our array of 9 different strings for the flag descriptions. We declare them all here, but we actually set them way down here in this code. And once again, you can count them, or you don't have to, because you can see the indices go from 0 to 8. So clearly there are 9 flag descriptions now. Those are actually going to be what goes in the text area. But I guess if you think about it here, they all have an ellipsis after them, indicating that this is an abbreviated version of what should really go in that text area. It is, after all, a flag description. So it shouldn't just say the Canadian national flag ... but it should say something about the Canadian national flag. It should be a whole big description, a big piece of text that sits in the text area. But we're just keeping it short and simple to make the demo go smoothly and quickly. The strings that go with the flags are defined up here, and you can probably guess by now there's going to be 9 of those too. So you can go ahead and count those and confirm that there's 9. So we have 1, 2, 3 arrays of things. Every one of those arrays contains 9 items. Our combo box is also going to contain 9 items, and those are then the things that we're going to select from the combo box, but we'll want to know what index what we've selected is at, so we can use that index to access the appropriate piece of information from each of these 3 arrays. Now scrolling back, well, let's just go through the rest of it. So we know we have all our imports, we extend application, and we've just discussed the arrays that are here. Now this is something we haven't talked about yet, this blue section right here. So let's focus on that for a second. Well, the combo box itself is the second half of it right here. So this is where we declare the combo box. So you recall that combo box has a generic type, and we've made it string. So our combo box is going to contain a bunch of string items that we're going to have to put into it. So we'll come back to that later. Now let's look at the rest of the code I indicated a moment ago, which is this piece right up here, now the top part of it. Well, here's where we declare the description pane. Now that is something of our own creation that you'll see down below. So we're going to make a class called description pane, and we're going to instantiating an object called description pane of that class. Now you've probably forgotten, but we used this description pane in a previous demo that we already looked at in the first half of chapter 15. I'm just going to click on this tab here to show you the code, which you may or may not recognize now. So here it is, and in one of our previous demos we had something that looked very similar to this, but it was missing the combo box, and it only had one flag, one name of a flag, and one description in it. But what we're doing now then is using a combo box to allow us to select from a number of different possible flags and their appropriate descriptions and names. So that's how we're borrowing this that we saw already. So we won't go through this again because we discussed this already. So I'm going to close that tab up, and so that was just to remind you about this description pane that we already reviewed earlier. Continuing on then, we're going to provide a display routine called setDisplay, and what it's going to do, notice it has an index that's going to be passed. Well, you might not know that's an index, but I'm telling you it is now. And this is going to select a particular country of the different 9 countries that we have that we're supporting in this demo. The indices go from 0 to 8 then, and belong with the 3 arrays above that we already looked at. So when we say set display 0, it means get all the information for country 0. That is its label for its flag, the image of its flag, and the text area description, and display all that in our stage. So let's pop down and look at that method now. Here it is right here. So all that happens is we pass this method an index, which is integer, and it simply goes to the flag titles and pulls out the right title of a flag, the right flag image, and pulls out the correct image view for that, and the right flag description and pulls out the text area for that. And then it sets the title of our description pane, and this is from the last demo that we saw already earlier. Sets the title equal within this description pane equal to that particular flag name, sets the image view to that flag, and sets the text area description to that flag. So this is just a method that's simply going to select the appropriate information for the appropriate flag that we've pulled from our combo box and show it just as we did before in the earlier demo. So continuing on from back up here then, we create a border pane called Pane for us to use for the demo. We're going to have a pane for our combo box, and we're going to create a new border pane for that as well. So that's also a border pane. We're going to set the left area of that border pane to the name of the selected country, or to the basically something that's a prompt for the combo box. It says select a country : and that prompt's just going to sit there statically for the whole demonstration. But to the right of it, there'll be a combo box that we can select from then. So that's why we set this in the left of our border pane, and we're going to set the actual combo box in the center of our border pane. Now notice then in that border pane we don't have any top or bottom or right defined. So there's only a left and a center. That means the other elements vanish to 0, and just those two things are left. In the top area of the pane we then put our combo box. Okay, so we've got a border pane within another border pane right now. We set the preferred width of that to 400, and we set the value to Canada initially for our combo box. So now this is the combo box we're dealing with, and we say cbo.setValueCanada, it's going to show that as the currently selected value in the combo box. But of course, then we can change it to whatever we want when we run the demo. Now you remember there was a utility function in FX Collections called Observable Array List that accepted a regular array, and that's what flag titles is, and created from it an observable list. So that's why we've declared an observable list of strings. We're going to call it items, and we're going to set it up by using fxcollections.observableArrayList on our regular array of strings. So it's no longer an array of strings, but rather it's going to be items is going to be an observable list, because remember, that's what we need for our combo box. So we then put that as all the selectable items in our combo box by this line right here, by saying cbo.getItems.addAll, and then throwing that entire observable array, observable list rather, into here as an argument. So they become the children of CBO then. And then we set in the outer border pane, in the center part, the entire description pane. Now that's pretty much it, because the rest of the code, the only piece we haven't looked at, is the usual stuff that we see in all of the demos. So no big surprise there. Let's go ahead and run this now. Okay, so the Canadian flag is the one that was selected by default, because in the code right over here where we've got the cursor, we set the initial value to Canada. Let's see what else we have in our combo box. Well, we have China, Denmark, France, so there should be 9 altogether. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sure enough. Let's try the United States of America. There we go. So having selected that, created an event, and that event triggered the reorganization of this window to have the appropriate image, the appropriate flag name, and the appropriate description in the text area. Text area does have scroll bars that work. They're not terribly useful right now, but they could be if we had longer descriptions in here to work with. And we can go and select something else. But notice we can only select one item at a time, because that's how combo boxes work. They don't allow us to select multiple items at the same time. That's actually a subject for the remainder of chapter 15. So I think that pretty much does that for this demo.